FBI agent says the Bureau's Chicago field office disinvited a Catholic priest who was scheduled to administer ashes on Ash Wednesday. The move by FBI authorities broke a decades-long Lenten tradition in the Chicago office. It comes after a recently leaked FBI memo revealed the Bureau's targeting of, quote, radical traditional Catholics. The FBI has since retracted that memo. Catholic leaders have accused the FBI of religious profiling. And here with us tonight is Kyle Seraphin, former FBI agent and the man who uncovered that recent memo. Kyle, great to have you with us. A lot to unpack here. But first, your reaction to these headlines and what does all this signal about the FBI?
Well, Tracy, I think it's a clear bias that the FBI is showing against not just Catholics and not just Christians, but conservatives in general. There's a kind of a growing sentiment when it comes to the investigative priorities that lean against anybody that has sort of traditional and conservative type ideas about the way the world should work. So that that goes into the counterterrorism space. It's going into the criminal investigations, and then obviously there's some policy stuff that's going on in the back end that we're seeing, whether it be saying they're going to go after radical traditional Catholics, or they're going to be discontinuing a Lenten service that's been going on for maybe as long as 30 years, from what I can tell.
Kyle, do you know any more about that? I mean, why they disinvited the priest? What was the reasoning for that move?
No reasoning was given, and I had a number of different employees, both agents and support employees in the Chicago field office, reach out to me. First, they were concerned about the health of the priest because he's a chaplain, a retired one from the Chicago PD. He's been doing this for a very long time. And as you can probably guess, there's a fair number of Catholics in the Chicago field office, just like there are a fair number of Catholics in Chicago in general. And so it was probably an administrative decision a long time ago to keep everybody from having an exodus on a regular work day to go and do a religious celebration when they could just bring it in-house. There's a long-standing Catholic chaplain system that goes on within the FBI and many of the field offices and many other faiths as well. So this is not an uncommon thing to have a specific observance. But in this case, they chose to discontinue it, and they didn't share any information from the executive management.
I want to talk now back to the memo. As we mentioned, of course, you're the one who kind of blew the lid on the FBI memo about traditional radical Catholics. Someone on the inside obviously had to give you some of that information. And it does show that there are some in the FBI who seem to be fed up with the status quo. Do you think that is enough to turn the tide over there? And what is going on?
No, I don't think it's enough to turn the tide. And the reason is because Congress gave them another $1.5 billion for the funding of the fiscal year in 2023. So the FBI went from $9.8 to $11.3 billion in budget. So it's the highest budget in history. And despite the fact that many people are disgusted with the way the Bureau is getting involved in politics and trying to pick winners and losers in the game when it comes to prosecutions, that is not enough to change what has gone on in the D.C. There's sort of a two-step that goes back and forth between the Washington field office and the headquarters building, and those people ratchet up the top, and many of them are, a long time. They haven't been in the field for over a decade, some of them, more than that, 10, 15, and sometimes as long as almost 20 years since they've actually worked a case and been close to the actual mission set that the FBI does on the ground. So they're totally disconnected, and so is, most of D.C., I think, from most of America at this point. So it's not surprising that they just continue to do this thing.
Kyle, we're almost out of time, but very quickly, I mean, where do you see all of this going?
I don't know. I'd like to say that I'm hopeful about the way the Weaponization Committee is looking into these things. I think there's some potential there, but they've really got a pretty narrow path to be able to curtail this. I don't think there's any energy, and I don't think there's any fortitude for the FBI to be dismantled in any way, shape, or form. So at the very least, I hope they try to take apart this domestic intelligence mission, which leads to this spying operation and all the types of source infiltrations into these conservative places. But, we just got to, I guess we got to put our hope in our elected representatives, and then also petition them and tell them that what we expect and what we expect to see them do.
Kyle, thank you so much. Great to have you with us. We appreciate it.
No problem, Tracy.